The Order, also known as the Silent Brotherhood, emerged in 1983 as one of the most notorious white nationalist organizations in the United States. Founded by Robert J. Matthews, the group's objective was to overthrow the federal government and establish a white ethnostate. Its foundation marked a turning point in domestic terrorism, as it laid the groundwork for violent far-right extremism in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The Order's actions, ranging from armed robberies and counterfeiting to high-profile assassinations, continue to echo in modern extremist circles, inspiring other groups and individuals to adopt their ideology and tactics. The Order was born out of a growing sense of disillusionment with mainstream politics among far-right extremists in the early 1980s. This discontent was fueled by the belief that the U.S. government, often referred to as the Zionist-occupied government, ZOG, within these circles, had betrayed the founding principles of America by promoting multiculturalism, immigration, and civil rights for minority groups. Matthews, a charismatic figure with deep roots in the white supremacist movement, was deeply influenced by the novel The Turner Diaries by William Luther Pierce. The novel depicted a dystopian future in which a small group of white nationalists overthrows the U.S. government through guerrilla warfare, igniting a global racial war. This vision resonated with Matthews and became the ideological backbone of the Order. Matthews gathered like-minded individuals from various white supremacist organizations, including the Aryan Nations and the National Alliance. They shared a common goal: to dismantle the existing political system through violent means and establish a racially pure state. In September 1983, the Order held its first clandestine meeting in Washington state, where Matthews delivered a fiery speech outlining their objectives. Members pledged loyalty to the cause, swearing secrecy, and committing themselves to what they believed was a divine mission to save the white race. To finance their operations and spread their ideology, the Order engaged in a series of criminal activities, most notably armed robberies and counterfeiting. Their criminal campaign began with small-scale thefts, but quickly escalated to more ambitious and violent endeavors. One of their most infamous heists occurred in July 1984, when members of the Order robbed a Brinks armored car near Ukiah, California, making off with over $3.6 million. The funds were intended to support white nationalist causes, including propaganda dissemination, weapons procurement, and logistical support for like-minded groups. In addition to armed robberies, the Order engaged in counterfeiting operations to produce fake currency. They viewed this as a way to undermine the U.S. economy while simultaneously funding their activities. Counterfeiting required sophisticated equipment and operational secrecy, but the Order believed that economic sabotage was a crucial element of their broader strategy to destabilize the government. While financial gain was a primary motivation behind these crimes, the Order also employed violence as a tool for intimidation and propaganda. Their most infamous act of violence was the assassination of Alan Berg, a Jewish radio talk show host known for his outspoken criticism of white supremacists and far-right ideologies. On June 18, 1984, members of the Order ambushed Berg outside his Denver home, shooting him multiple times. His murder was a watershed moment, drawing national attention to the dangers posed by domestic terrorist groups. The Order operated with a rigid hierarchical structure inspired by paramilitary organizations. At the top was Robert J. Matthews, who served as the undisputed leader and ideological figurehead. Beneath him were trusted lieutenants responsible for various operational tasks, including recruitment, logistics, and propaganda dissemination. Members were indoctrinated with white nationalist rhetoric and trained in guerrilla warfare tactics, firearms handling, and bomb-making. This militarized approach reflected their belief that a race war was imminent and that they needed to be prepared to wage it. The ideological underpinnings of the Order were deeply rooted in the concept of racial purity and the rejection of what they saw as a corrupt and multicultural society. They viewed themselves as warriors fighting for the survival of the white race, which they believed was under threat from racial integration, Jewish influence, and liberal policies. Their rhetoric often invoked themes of martyrdom and divine mission, painting their struggle as both a political and spiritual crusade. Propaganda played a crucial role in spreading their ideology and recruiting new members. The order produced and distributed white nationalist literature, including pamphlets, newsletters, and recordings of speeches by Matthews and other leaders. The order's activities sent shockwaves through law enforcement and the broader public, prompting a nationwide manhunt for its members. In December 1984, after months of evading capture, Robert J. Matthews was cornered by federal agents on Whidbey Island, Washington. During a standoff, Matthews refused to surrender, leading to a violent confrontation that ended with him dying in a fiery blaze when the cabin he was hiding in caught fire. His death marked the beginning of the end for the order, as law enforcement intensified efforts to dismantle the group and prosecute its members. Despite the dissolution of the order, their influence endured in the form of a martyrdom narrative that resonated with other far-right extremists. Matthews was immortalized as a hero and a martyr in white nationalist circles, and his writings, speeches, and the group's actions became a blueprint for subsequent domestic terrorist organizations. Groups such as the Aryan Republican Army and the National Alliance drew inspiration from the order's methods and rhetoric, perpetuating a cycle of extremist violence. The assassination of Alan Berg and the order's broader campaign of violence also prompted significant changes in how law enforcement agencies approached domestic terrorism. The FBI and other agencies began to allocate more resources to monitoring and infiltrating far-right extremist groups, recognizing the growing threat they posed to national security. The emergence of the order highlighted the need for a coordinated response to domestic terrorism, leading to increased cooperation between federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. In addition to influencing law enforcement strategies, the order's legacy shaped public discourse on hate groups and domestic extremism. Their actions served as a stark reminder of the dangers posed by unchecked white nationalism and the potential for extremist rhetoric to escalate into violence. Public awareness campaigns and educational initiatives aimed at countering hate speech and promoting tolerance became more prominent in the years following the order's dismantling. The order, Silent Brotherhood, remains one of the most infamous domestic terrorist organizations in American history. Founded on a vision of racial purity and driven by a desire to overthrow the government, their campaign of violence and criminal activity left an indelible mark on the nation. While their immediate impact was curtailed by the death of Robert J. Matthews and the subsequent crackdown on their members, their ideological legacy endures, inspiring subsequent generations of far-right extremists. The story of the order serves as a cautionary tale about the perils of extremist ideologies and the importance of vigilance in confronting domestic terrorism.